Right.
So I want to give you a chance to, if you have any things that you dislike about being an artist, what would those be? You don't have to have any.
Nah, sure. Things I dislike about being an artist. I did not grow up in an art. I did not grow up. I was not raised by artists. I did not grow up in an artistic household. I didn't really grow up in an artistic family. We didn't know any artists. So in a way, I mean, I barely self-identify as an artist. I mean, I'm just somebody who makes these things that, you know, people call me an artist, and that's fine. It's easy. It's simple, and it's great. The term really, I could care less. The things that I don't like is how far removed it is from people's real lives. That seems like an unnecessary burden. Um, I mean, I majored in philosophy as an undergrad, and in a way, it's the same thing. It's like people could barely understand that. It's like, why would anybody major in that? There's no income potential. It's not going to help you do all these other things, And I mean, in a way, it's true, right? But I wasn't training for a career. I mean, I was training for a life, and so, I mean, I don't regret the philosophy. It totally helps me with art now. But it's difficult to be outside of the mainstream in a way that the mainstream can't relate to you. It seems an unnecessary burden. Um,
Are you doing anything about it?
I am not doing anything about it. I mean, I'm just whatever. I'm not dyeing my hair pink. That's what I'm doing about it, and maybe that'll help. The other thing, Trisha Donnelly, a much bigger artist that taught at my school, she said it at a lecture. She talked about how catty the art world is, and I think she's right. But I also can't help but think that's true of any profession. I mean, I think actors are probably as catty. I bet top level executives and CEOs are just as catty because that's a small club like artists and they talk. I mean, it's human beings. That's what human beings do. We just love to talk about other people and see what people are doing, and that's what people do. And so, yeah, artists seem more catty, but that's because this is the circle I know. And if I wasn't an artist and I was just hanging out with my friends, well, they're catty too, right? And we talk about stuff, and that's what people do. Um, there does seem to be an unnecessary uh, degree of hipness and coolness related to being an artist, which is kind of funny to me, um, because it just seems unnecessary. And maybe that's related. That's probably maybe a youth aspect too. If I hung around artists who were 40s, 50s, and 60s, I guess I wouldn't say that as much. But I hang out with people that are younger, and so I see that. But maybe that's just true of anybody who's younger. Um, there's also a lot of bad work. I mean, that's something it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny because you're inundated with it. I mean, I've made it, I've shown it, other people make it, other people show it. You don't know that it's bad. I mean, it's the weirdest kind of education in the world because there's no training for it. And when you get an MFA, it's really about this focus you want to do of your ideas, and in a way that's impossible to train for because you don't even know what it's going to be. You're constantly evolving, and you don't know what the work's going to be. You're going to make in 2 years or 5 years or 6 months, and yet you're trying to do this, and it's ridiculous in a way. I mean, it's absurd. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then the flip side is what an embrace of life and creativity and being alive. I mean, I I came to art late. I went to art school later. It was so far out of the realm for me. When I was an undergrad, I knew people were going to art school. It never once occurred to me to do that. It made no sense. I mean, philosophy seemed much more pragmatic. And now, after going through it and know all these artists, it just seems such an embracing of being alive and potentiality, um, and also dissecting. I think an artist has tools to dissect the world in a way that somebody who maybe like an English major or a businessman or a woman or whatever doesn't have those same tools to dissect. And I think it's an invaluable education. It's very hard. I mean, it's very hard to do this. It's not a comfortable thing.
Mhm.
I mean, even if you're comfortable, like, you live in a great home and stuff and you make great money, it's still not always that comfortable if you're going to keep pushing and exploring as opposed to finding a place and settling in on that and just making that work all the time and never growing, which is what people do too, especially if they become successful early. But I mean, that just seems such a shame because once you have that mindset, which is very hard to get to begin with, I mean, I think people are probably born with it, most likely. It's a shame to throw that away or to not explore that potential.
Good.